Welcome back. Today, we're tackling something, well, we all know too well. Information overload.
Hmm.
You know that feeling, right? Like 30 browser tabs open,
Yeah.
a to-read list that's longer than your arm,
Right.
and constantly feeling like you're like one news cycle behind.
Oh, yeah.
It can feel almost impossible to keep up, let alone actually learn and grow.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is, the sources you sent in, they actually reveal that this isn't just a personal struggle. It's like a global phenomenon impacting how we learn and even how we think.
Absolutely. We're in it's this unprecedented era where information is constantly bombarding us from all directions. And what's interesting is your sources highlight some pretty serious anxieties around this. People are struggling to figure out what information is even reliable these days,
Yeah.
feeling pressured to constantly learn new skills, and just generally feeling lost in this sea of apps and updates. It's like not just FOMO anymore. It's a fundamental shift in how we interact with the world.
It's almost like information itself has become this overwhelming force.
Yeah.
And honestly, it can be paralyzing. For example, think about how many times you've wanted to learn a new skill, say coding, only to get bogged down by the sheer volume of resources available. Online courses, tutorials, boot camps, there's so much out there. It becomes hard to even know where to start.
It's a classic. That's that paradox of choice situation. And the source material you sent in, it argues that simply consuming more information isn't the answer. Instead, it's about changing how we learn. We need a system that's built for this digital age, one that helps us sift through the noise, identify what's truly valuable, and then actually integrate that knowledge into our lives. Traditional learning methods, they just aren't cutting it anymore.
It's almost like we're trying to solve a 21st century problem with the 20th century toolkit.
Right, exactly.
And speaking of 21st century solutions, AI comes to mind. It can process and analyze massive amounts of data in an instant. But do we actually have the skills to keep up with it?
That's a really insightful observation. Your sources suggest that we're facing a kind of evolutionary bottleneck. AI can give us instant information, but if we don't develop the cognitive skills to process, to analyze and apply that information effectively, we risk falling behind. It's like having a Ferrari but not knowing how to drive it.
So we need a new kind of driver's ed for the information age.
Exactly. And your sources actually point to some individuals who are already pioneering new approaches to learning and development in this digital landscape. One particularly interesting example is Niraja, a mechanical engineer who's taking a fascinating and some might say radical approach.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Tell me more about this Niraj and what makes her approach so different. What's she doing that's catching your eye?
Well, what's fascinating is that she's not just trying to teach people how to learn faster or consume more information. She's challenging the very foundation of our current learning system, in her words. She believes that the system, as it is pushing us towards what she calls artificiality, potentially at the expense of developing our own innate human intelligence.
That's a pretty bold statement, I have to admit. I'm a little skeptical. Is she saying that technology is inherently bad for us?
Not necessarily. She's not anti-technology at all. In fact, she leverages it extensively in her own work. It's more about finding the right balance. What's interesting is that she draws upon ancient wisdom traditions, blending those principles with modern learning techniques and technologies to create a system that she argues helps people develop what she calls human superintelligence.
Human superintelligence. Now that definitely sounds intriguing. But before we dive into that, I think it's important to understand what exactly she's offering and how it works in practice. Is she talking about meditation retreats or something?
Not quite. She's actually very grounded in the digital world. She offers a range of resources, webinars, ebooks, tutorials, even digital designs and models. And she's built this all through her company, OMSOL. It's a fascinating blend of learning, development, research, and resources, all brought together in one platform.
Okay, so she's meeting people where they are,
Mm-hmm.
which is online. But what's the goal here? What's she ultimately trying to achieve with all of this?
She refers to it as a magical solution for navigating information overload and unlocking human potential. Essentially, she's trying to create a new system of learning and development that's tailored to the demands of the digital age, one that helps people not just keep up with the pace of information, but actually thrive amidst it.
Okay, magical solution is a pretty bold claim. I am definitely curious to learn more about what makes her approach so magical, and more importantly, how our listeners can actually apply these ideas in their own lives to combat that feeling of information overload.
Absolutely. That's the key question here. How can we translate these seemingly abstract concepts into tangible actions. And it's
Yeah.
interesting because Niraja herself is very practical in her approach. She focuses on building systems
Mhm.
and developing habits that help people become, more organized, productive, and
Good.
focused.
And it's not just about absorbing information. It's about integrating it into our lives in a meaningful way.
Exactly. And that's where her emphasis on what she calls systematic learning procedure comes in. It's about having a structured approach to learning, setting clear goals, and developing a system that works for you.
Okay. I like where this is going. More structure, less chaos.
Ah.
Sign me up. But I have to ask, are we talking about some rigid, time-consuming system here?
Not at all. It's actually quite adaptable. And that's another key aspect of her approach. She recognizes that there's no one-size-fits-all solution and encourages people to find what works best for them.
That makes sense. We've all tried those productivity hacks that end up being more work than they're worth.
Yeah.
But I'm still curious to understand how this systematic learning procedure actually works in practice. Can you give us a sneak peek?
Of course, one of the key principles she emphasizes is breaking down information into manageable chunks and applying it immediately. It's about moving away from passive consumption and towards active engagement.
So instead of trying to learn everything at once, you focus on mastering one small piece at a time and putting it into practice right away. That actually sounds way less overwhelming than trying to conquer a mountain of information all at once.
Exactly. And this ties back to her idea of blending ancient wisdom with modern systems. One specific example she uses is incorporating mindfulness practices, inspired by ancient meditation techniques, to help people focus better in our distraction-filled world. It's about training your mind to be present and engaged, rather than constantly scattered and overwhelmed.
That's so relevant. It's like we're all carrying around these supercomputers in our pockets, but struggling to focus our attention for more than a few minutes at a time.
Precisely. And that's where Niraj's approach really shines. She's not just offering a bunch of quick fixes or productivity hacks. She's providing a framework for developing, the mental skills and habits we need to thrive in this digital age.
This is fascinating, but I'm sure our listeners are eager to hear more about this human superintelligence concept. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll delve deeper into that and explore what Niraja's work might tell us about the future of learning in a world increasingly dominated by AI. Stay with us. All right, we're back and ready to dive deeper into this idea of human superintelligence. It's a term that really caught my attention. Before the break, we were talking about how Niraja believes that our current learning systems are pushing us towards a kind of artificiality. So how does this concept of human superintelligence, how does that fit into that?
It's essentially her proposed antidote to that very problem. She argues that as AI becomes increasingly sophisticated, we need to develop our own cognitive abilities in parallel. It's not about becoming, superhuman in the comic book sense, but about cultivating those uniquely human qualities that AI, at least for now, can't replicate.
Okay, I'm starting to see the connection here. But what exactly are these uniquely human qualities? What does human superintelligence actually look like in practice?
That's where it gets really interesting. Niraja's work focuses on a few key areas. One is critical thinking, the ability to analyze information, identify biases, and form independent judgments. In a world saturated with information, this skill is more crucial than ever.
It's like we need to become master fact checkers.
Right.
Not just accepting everything we read online at face value.
Exactly. And that ties into another key area she focuses on, creativity. This isn't just about, artistic expression, but about the ability to think outside the box, come up with innovative solutions, and adapt to new situations. These are all skills that will become, increasingly valuable as AI takes over more routine tasks.
So we're talking about skills that complement AI.
Yeah.
Rather than compete with it.
Right.
It's almost like we need to evolve alongside technology, finding ways to leverage its strengths while also developing our own unique human capabilities.
That's a great way to put it. And that's where her emphasis on blending ancient wisdom with modern systems really comes into play. For example, she draws on ancient contemplative practices like meditation to help people cultivate focus and mental clarity.
Okay, so we're not talking about some futuristic sci-fi concept here. These are actually techniques that people have been using for centuries to train their minds and develop their inner potential.
Precisely. And what's fascinating is that she's finding ways to integrate these ancient practices with modern technology. For example, she uses biofeedback technology to help people track their progress in developing these mental skills.
So it's not a rejection of technology,
Yeah.
but rather a mindful integration of technology.
Exactly. And it's not just about individual development either. Neeraja emphasizes the importance of collaboration and community. She believes that by working together, sharing knowledge, and supporting each other, we can amplify our collective intelligence and create a more human-centered future.
I love that. It's like she's creating a movement, not just a business.
Mhm.
And it speaks to the power of collective wisdom, something that AI, at least for now, can't replicate.
Absolutely. And it's something that's really missing in our current culture, which often emphasizes, competition and individual achievement above all else. Neeraja's work offers a refreshing alternative, a vision of a future where technology serves to connect us and empower us, rather than isolate us and diminish our humanity.
This is all incredibly inspiring. But I have to admit, I'm also a bit overwhelmed. It sounds like a lot of work to develop this human superintelligence. Like, where do we even begin?
That's a valid point. It's not a quick fix, but rather a lifelong journey. However, Neeraja provides some practical starting points. Remember the systematic learning procedure we discussed earlier? That's one key element.
That structured approach to learning.
Yeah.
But how does that apply to developing human superintelligence?
Well, she encourages people to approach it like any other skill development process. Start by setting clear goals. What specific aspects of human superintelligence do you want to cultivate? Then break down those goals into smaller, manageable steps.
Okay, so it's about setting intentions and creating a roadmap for personal growth. What else?
Another key aspect is finding resources and mentors who can, guide you along the way. This is where her platform, AMSL, comes in. She offers a variety of courses, workshops, and online communities designed to support people on this journey.
So she's not just talking the talk, she's walking the walk. By providing the tools and resources people need to actually implement these ideas, that's great to hear. But I'm curious, how does this all relate back to the issue of information overload?
That's the crux of it all, really. By developing human superintelligence, enhancing our critical thinking, creativity, focus, and collaborative abilities, we're essentially building up our resilience to information overload. It's like building up our immune system so we can navigate this sea of information without getting, overwhelmed or losing ourselves in the process.
It's not about avoiding information or going off the grid, but rather about developing the mental and emotional tools we need to engage with information in a healthy and productive way.
Exactly. And that's a powerful message. It means that we're not helpless victims of information overload. We have agency, we have choices, and we have the power to shape how technology shapes us.
This has been an incredibly eye-opening conversation. We've talked about the challenges of information overload, the potential of AI, and the importance of cultivating human superintelligence. It feels like we've only just scratched the surface of this topic, though.
I agree. There's so much more to explore. And that brings us to another fascinating aspect of Neeraja's work, her vision for the future of learning. She believes that education needs to evolve. Beyond simply, transmitting information, it needs to become more experiential, more personalized, and more focused on developing the whole person, not just their, cognitive abilities, but also their emotional intelligence, their social skills, and their ethical awareness.
That's a pretty radical departure from the traditional model of education. But it makes sense, given everything we've discussed about the need for human skills. To complement AI, it's like we need to rethink education from the ground up.
Right. Exactly. And Neeraja isn't just, theorizing about this. She's actually putting these ideas into practice through her research and learning center, where she's developing and testing new educational models that incorporate these principles.
That's impressive. So she's really putting her money where her mouth is, so to speak. But I have to ask, how realistic is this vision? Is it actually possible to transform education on such a large scale?
That's the million-dollar question, and it's one that we're all grappling with as we navigate this rapidly evolving landscape. But I think Neeraja's work offers a glimmer of hope. She shows that it's possible to think differently about learning, about technology, and about our own human potential. And while it may seem, daunting to try to change the system, it's important to remember that all movements start with individuals who dare to imagine a different future.
That's a powerful message. So what can our listeners do to contribute to this vision?
Well, one simple step is to start by applying these principles in their own lives. Experiment with different learning techniques. Explore ancient wisdom traditions. Cultivate your own human superintelligence.
It's about becoming lifelong learners, not just in the traditional sense,
Yeah.
but in a way that embraces our full human potential. Yeah, and that's a journey we can all embark on, regardless of our background or expertise.
Exactly. And remember, this isn't about achieving some, unattainable ideal of perfection. It's about embracing the process of continuous growth and evolution. It's about becoming more mindful, more intentional, and more connected to ourselves and the world around us.
I love that. It's a message of empowerment, not just for individuals, but for humanity as a whole. And I think it's a fitting note to end our deep dive on.
I agree. It's been a truly insightful conversation, and I hope it's inspired our listeners to think differently about how they learn, how they interact with technology, and how they shape their own futures.
It's interesting that you bring up Niraja's Research and Learning Center, because I think it speaks to something like really crucial. She's not just offering a philosophy, she's building a tangible platform for change. It's almost like she's creating a real-world embodiment of these concepts, a place where people can experience this new way of learning firsthand.
Exactly. And that's something that really sets her apart. She's not just, writing books or giving lectures. She's creating an ecosystem where these ideas can flourish. Remember that word platform we mentioned earlier? It's not just a buzzword in this case. It's a very deliberate choice. She's building a foundation for a movement, not just a business.
It makes me think about how open source software, like, revolutionized the tech world. What if we could apply that same spirit of collaboration and open access to the realm of learning and human development?
It's a powerful analogy, and I think that's precisely what Niraja is trying to do. Democratize access to these tools and techniques for cultivating human intelligence. She envisions a world where this kind of learning isn't confined to, elite institutions or expensive workshops, but is available to everyone, regardless of their background or resources.
And wouldn't that be incredible? Imagine a world where everyone had the opportunity to develop their full cognitive and creative potential. It's almost like a utopian vision, but one that feels strangely within reach, thanks to the work of people like Niraja.
I agree. And it's not just about individual empowerment either. Think about the collective impact this could have on society as a whole. Is we can cultivate a generation of individuals who are equipped with the skills to think critically, solve problems creatively, and collaborate effectively. We can tackle some of the most pressing challenges facing humanity.
It's like we're talking about a paradigm shift in human evolution, moving from a species that's primarily focused on consuming information to one that's actively shaping and creating its own future.
And that brings us back to the central question we started with. How do we navigate this overwhelming sea of information and emerge not just, unscathed, but actually empowered? I think the answer lies in embracing this vision of human superintelligence, cultivating our own inner resources, and becoming active participants in shaping the future.
So it's not about becoming Luddites and rejecting technology altogether. It's about using it mindfully, intentionally, and collaboratively to enhance our own human capabilities.
Precisely. And that's a message that I hope resonates with our listeners. It's not about waiting for someone else to solve these problems for us. It's about taking ownership of our own learning, our own growth, and our own future.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one key takeaway you want to leave our listeners with?
I think it boils down to this. The future is not something that happens to us. It's something we create. And the tools for creating that future are already within us. It's just a matter of cultivating them.
Beautifully said. This has been an incredible journey, exploring the intersection of information overload, artificial intelligence, and human potential. A huge thank you to you for guiding us through this complex landscape and for sharing your insights.
The pleasure was all mine. And to our listeners, we want to hear from you. What resonated with you most in this episode? What steps are you taking to reclaim your time, your attention, and human potential in this digital age? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let's continue this conversation together. Until next time, happy learning.